I got a Fujifilm X Pro 3. But what I'm using now is a Fuji GFX50s Mark II. It has some issues with the screen wiring, and even this thing sparked a lawsuit. But all in all, it is for me one of my favorite cameras. It may have some minor issues. For example, I wish its OVF could have a double magnifier function like the X Pro 2, and it could have a drive knob like the X-T3. It allows me to be able to quickly select HDR mode. In fact, I rather like this even for taking videos. I only have this one camera as my main camera. All the others are film cameras or were lost in an unfortunate incident, and the rest of the other digital cameras that are left are some 360 panoramic cameras, sports cameras and such. So in some cases, I will be forced to use it to record some very short videos or even some podcasts. Maybe even when I'm traveling, I'll use its OVF to record some videos that are about 15 seconds long, kind of like live photo on a camera. So having a quick button to adjust it would actually be quite nice. In reality, Fuji could have solved this problem perfectly by allowing me to map these functions to shortcuts via a software update. For me, the best X Pro 3 feature is that it has a very large number of dials. Even the fact that I don't really remember what these modes MSP are. I just need to know my dials. This is the ISO dial, this is the shutter speed dial, and this is the aperture dial. I rotate each individual knob, turn that knob to auto mode when I need it, and then proceed to adjust the other knobs. In the vast majority of cases, I'll choose to put one of these dials into auto mode and then go to the two that I care more about. Of course, there are plenty of times when I'll adjust all three to manual mode. It achieves a sort of I can switch between the three values gracefully. It has far more freedom than the MASP mode because I have the option of selecting two values to auto. Because some days for me, the only thing I need to care about is shutter speed, while the other two parameters are for shutter speed. I don't need to worry about my aperture, and I don't need to care about my ISO. Then I was happy when I complained to the shop while it was being repaired. When I didn't have a camera to use for almost 2 weeks, the shop offered a solution. It said you could rent a camera from our used rack. I thanked them very much. I ended up renting a GFX50s Mark II. I had been looking at a medium format camera for a long time, including the Hasselblad and including the GFX100s too. The 50 series wasn't my first choice, but it was certainly the one that made the most sense for an economic choice for me. I use this camera. What makes me happy about it is that it has digital dials, a familiar operating logic that I inherited from the X Pro. While it doesn't feel as tactile as the X Pro 3 overall, the GFX as a whole is a camera that makes me stand there or stand in front of an object and think about the way it's conceived, the way it's thought about. When I pressed the shutter, a huge vibration came from the machine, a feeling of a great machineries of the console. I love this camera, but there are some issues with the design of this camera. I don't want to say that this camera can only output 1080p video, but yet it keeps the movie and still buttons on the camera. I think it's totally just a design consideration, probably to take on the design language of the 100 series or just to save on design costs. But when it introduced the virtual dial, it didn't have an A option in the virtual knob. I have to choose one from the center of MSP, very mechanically. Something that confuses me a lot because for me, being able to go to an A in a mechanical dial or switching out of it quickly is one of the biggest advantages of Fuji for me. I think it's something that Fuji could limit to just the M set of full manual mods if they could limit it to the next generation or this generation of software updates to include an in all three dial shutter speed, ISO and aperture in this M option, something that would allow me to quickly switch something to an A after it's been switched to. When I select ASP for the mode, this option disappears. It will be very helpful to me, and it will greatly improve the feel of my interactions. In fact, it's too inflexible due to either ASP. As opposed to the X Pro 3, I basically only use the MS stop to shoot now. It's not going to do too much for me because it has very intuitive exposure accuracy metering. But if Fuji can do this, it's an option that unifies the design language more and outputs more of its design strengths, isn't it?